Hi, this is Neil Sutton coming from you from my apartment in Brooklyn. I decided to make a video about everything that's been going on over the last several years. As many of you all seen on Facebook from the documentation that I've been posting, that these crimes have been going on since 2011. The Anne Arundel County Police Department decided to falsify documents and statements to my department, claiming that there were no evidence of fires at the marital residence at 1255 Johnson Grove Lane, trying to accuse me of being nuts. I've been repeatedly put through continual psych exams that are more than average from what anybody would expect. It's not one time going to a psychiatrist. It's having to go through a panel of exams such as Asperger's syndrome exams, bipolar 1, bipolar 2 exams, Minnesota phasic exams, and several other types of exams. Having to see psychiatrists physically to clear me and everything, and that's been done repeatedly, both from private mental health professionals and the DC Fire and EMS Department, police and fire clinic professionals. The damages that have been done by Anne Arundel County Police Department since these threats began, that I reported like any other citizen should, started with death threats of if you come into work tomorrow, you're going home in a body bag, led up to you being watched 24/7, and threats to kill. Reports were done at work for times I wasn't even at work, to pornographic mail being sent into the job, constantly calls coming in for airlines, tickets and progress reports for things I didn't order, Discover card being hacked, Bank of America credit card being hacked, my SunTrust bank account being hacked, and so forth. And then my wife continually calling after she snapped. She was unhappy about the incidents going on. She was unhappy I was locking the doors at night at the house. She was actually opening the doors. I'd find them open at 2 o'clock in the morning when I was going out or getting up to use the restroom, out walking through the woods all hours of the night while all this stuff was going on. And then, like I said, she finally snapped. I called the Anne Arundel County Mental Health Crisis Team, who were aware of her documented mental health issues, advised me to call the police. The paperwork was presented to the police department. They had already told my department 23 days earlier that she was psych decomposed due to bipolar 1. They sent faxed statements over stating that she was mentally unstable and that she requested mental health help. Again, this is what was denied to her 23 days later when she snapped out into another personality. 45 minutes after they let her go, I was thrown out of the house based upon false charges. It went to court. She had those charges dismissed. There was an agreement signed. My attorney I had at the time, Monte Montgomery, told me he did not think it was a legal document. And, my job was being placed at risk because of these charges that I knew were false. Nevertheless, it was done. Shortly after that, she started contacting me with her phone number blocked. I was very often answering with my speakerphone on. And other people were hearing this or notarized letters to her from other people verifying that she was inviting me up to the house. We were communicating. I did hire a private investigator to find out what the heck was going on. He was behind all of this. And so forth. In the meantime, I was continuing to pay for the car insurance on all 5 cars, and doing what I was supposed to do, knowing that because of her mental health issues, this was going on. Through the attorney, it was arranged I go pick up the cats. She had hidden my property in storage and wouldn't tell me where that was at. She continually called the job. I had to do a special report. I was told to do a police report, which I did do in Anne Arundel County. advising them of the situation. They knew that Susan and I had been together at the house. It stated right in police reports that no protective order was in effect. However, I had to do the police report. I did this at Anne Arundel County Police Station. Corporal T.J. Zappi took that police report, or typed that police report up, and he was there at my marital residence 2 months earlier. Had actually called me, and I can pull up that voicemail, which I have recorded on tape, where he actually called me to come pick up the truck that was reported stolen for me to take back to the residence. But nevertheless, by December 19th, she went to the police station. Approximately 2 weeks after, Lieutenant Harry Peterson from Anne Arundel County Police told her, hey, don't call this man's job. It's okay to call him on his cell phone, but do not call this man's job, which she's continued to do for years. And most recently, they believe it's her. I believe it's her, based upon calling the firehouse last year, as you can see with the Facebook notes, and in the documentation from the firehouse phone and from my cell phone, where she was continually contacting me. A lot more incidents than what I can name in here. The arson incidents at my residence here in Baltimore, right at the time that there were calls coming in from Anne Arundel County Police Department, accusing me to have a Nazi paraphernalia and firearms in my storage bins in Anne Arundel County. There were swastikas put on the doors here. She was seen following me when I lived over at my other address 3 doors down. She was seen by neighbors heckling me out here at 5 o'clock in the morning and then taking off. Police in Anne Arundel County would not take reports, shifting me back over to Baltimore. Baltimore County shifts me back to Anne Arundel. That's been a constant runaround. Even while there was an interim order in effect, she left a greeting card on my car stating it feels like we're 1,000 miles away and so forth, signed by her. But the police do nothing. Like I said, the fires occurred around the same time as the swastika incidents, her being seen. There were witnesses that saw her, or a witness that saw her stalking me at the Save-A-Lot. There's people from my church that knows that she chased me from my church through Glen Burnie on the way home from church from Odenton, coming back to Baltimore. It's just been unbelievable, even being followed right after I came from Millersville from having a tooth pulled. But the police department do nothing. They've had copies of her diaries. They have documented information showing that the police report that filed the charges on me were false prior to this going to court in 2012. The case was no prosecuted and later dismissed in 2014. After the Judge Spencer had given the order to the State's Attorney's Office to take whatever action deemed appropriate, because there was a no prosecute done to protect my job, and I did send the documentation to Judge's chambers after that was done. That's where the handwritten order was sent to Wes Adams, the Anne Arundel County State's Attorney's Office, to take whatever action deemed necessary. The State's Attorney's Office did nothing with it. And even after a March 31st ruling determined that I had marital ownership in that home, they refused to drop those charges from the no prosecute to dismissed. So, this has been an ongoing problem with the courts. Her attorney kept arguing that I was paranoid and delusional even after receiving mental health reports clearing me. Back to work full duty, doing what I'm supposed to do. There were issues at work over all of this. They continued to send documentation to Susan's address, regardless that I had continually done change of addresses, and then suspended me. I mean, it was the same thing. Knowing that the case had been dismissed, my department still suspended me for 15 hours. We're now at the point now, because the judge went ahead and proceeded with the divorce, knowing that there was a federal bankruptcy. Judge Gieske proceeded to violate federal regulations regarding federal bankruptcy laws, and the lower courts not being allowed to proceed with the case. Decided to go ahead and do it anyway and divide property, which leads to more damages with the loss of my marital home, which I'm fighting in now to get my part of the ownership back. Susan did agree in a court case in 2010, admitted under oath on a witness stand, that she did agree to put my name on the deed once I sold my home, which I did, but said she changed her mind after I sold my home. This clearly shows constructive fraud for financial gain. Another point to stress out: her sister Ann Mead and herself, at this divorce hearing that was not supposed to proceed under federal law because of the bankruptcy being filed, they insisted that I hadn't lived at that residence since 2011. If you go back in my Facebook account and look at the police reports and look at the dates on those police reports, they clearly showed that both Ann Mead and Susan, now referred to as Billings, falsified on the witness stand information that was misleading to this case that should have never happened. But nevertheless, the police have continually tried to cover up and condone what has happened by denying incidents that happened that they themselves in police reports said happened. You know, this has been a travesty of justice and a nightmare. County Executive Schlew and Mayor Marion Bowser was made aware of this in 2016 for what was going on at that time. No corrections have been made by Chief Gregory Dean for falsifying those charges in 2015 to suspend me that were proven to be false. Deborah Scott from Office of Compliance had sent Captain Szymanski an email, which I did forward over to my attorney, Peter J. Eide, that I was arrested, which I've never been arrested. I was issued a subpoena in reference to those charges filed by Detective Overbay that have been dismissed. But clearly, I went down to the courthouse. I got the true test copies of that court case showing that protective order had been dismissed in 2012 at the request of then Susan Billings, or Susan Sutton, now Susan Billings. My department's done nothing to correct this. They denied FMLA for it, and denied they received paperwork to the grievance board. That paperwork's been posted up online of what was submitted with the follow-up emails from Lieutenant Lee Havens. There's also been reports posted up online from Sergeant Daniels' endorsement regarding, the fires that I reported to my department, as well as the endorsed report from, at that time, Sergeant Sid Polish, verifying that no medical authority deemed me to be sick, and that I should be reimbursed for the 240 hours sick leave I was forced to take, which I've never been reimbursed for. So this stuff's continued to go on. Here it is, 2018. The police department told a private investigator that she was responsible for the acts of destruction. There's no doubt that because of her mental health issues, there's no doubt and no reason to believe anything different. Just like the morning that the rocks broke the windows out at the house pre-dawn, and I took his gunfire, and I did return his gunfire after 6 months of death threats, credit cards being hit, bank accounts being hit, and all those fires, vandalism to her truck. I was in fear of my life and my safety. She had acted unusual, left the house 5 minutes before this incident. It was unusual for her not to say anything to me when she left, and it was a standard habit of me, no matter what I was doing in the morning. When she's getting ready to leave, I always went out to the truck or the car, whichever one she was taking, reached through the window, kissed her on the lips, told her I love her, and she'd tell me ditto, or it would be the other way around. You know, she'd tell me I love you, and I'd say ditto. It was something we learned off the movie Ghost. That became a tradition of ours. So, but that particular morning of this incident where the rocks were broken out, or rocks broke the windows out at the house, she made no indication she was leaving, left. 5 minutes after she left, these windows were broken out. And it wasn't until sunrise that it was determined that it was rocks and not gunfire. You have to understand, we had double pane windows at the house. The windows were broken out across the back of the house. I cut the only light I had on in the house after the second window got broken, due to the fact of, okay, I'm looking out from my office at the bedroom window that got broken, thinking a bird or a bat hit the window and broke the window, when the window next to my head was broken, and the percussion was so strong the blinds hit me in the head. So, you know, this is how this went down. I immediately cut the light down. I did have a shotgun in the room. I slid the patio door open enough that went out on the deck between my office and the master bedroom on the first floor. I did fire off a shot through the slit opening on the patio door as a warning shot, basically saying stop. I only kept one shell in that room. I put the gun down on the ground. I went and locked the patio door back up, climbed up in the dark through the living room to my gun cabinet in the dark, reached up, got the key down, unlocked the gun cabinet, grabbed for my .22, put a handful of ammunition in my pocket, and put my clip in the rifle. Crawled into the kitchen in the dark, reached up, felt my phone where it was charging on the kitchen counter all night, flipped it open, tried to call the police. As I was climbing headfirst down the steps into the basement kitchen, through the basement dining room to the basement foyer, the phone kept going dead. We did have a cell phone tower on the back of the property, so it did create a dead zone. My concern was that someone was going to come up out of the woods, up the hill, where the way our property was set off at the back, went out about 10 feet, started going downhill, and then there was a 10-foot or a 4-foot drop off into our woods, which gave anybody the perfect opportunity to come out of those woods and come up the hill through that patio door. My only concern was my self-preservation, my life safety, and that's basically why I was returning gunfire, because I was in fear of my life. There was glass falling down from the upstairs kitchen window, hitting a plastic box outside the patio door where I was laid out on the floor where I couldn't be seen, and in between a center block wall and a double plywood wall with heavy drywall and double insulation. So there was a certain degree of safety from that standpoint. But nevertheless, this glass was falling, hitting a plastic box that I had pellets in for the pellet furnace. And the glass did not echo when it hit this plastic box, so I took it as additional gunfire. When I did get back on the phone with dispatch, 911 dispatch, I advised them what was going on, 1033, because I was afraid of losing them again, and I was scared. I advised them to please block off the Sunrise Beach Road at the BGE power lines, and to block off at Indian Creek Landing at the power lines, the parallel road further on down, that this is how they got away before. That was a clear indication for the dispatcher to know, hey, this is an ongoing problem. I did tell them what I was wearing, that I was wearing a DC Fire Department t-shirt, blue jeans, where I was at in the basement. Now, I didn't want to be shot by friendly fire to have the police department hit their sirens coming into the driveway, as we had 300-foot private driveway with an additional 300 feet of shared driveway with the other neighbors. And I would have heard the siren when they pulled up, so I knew, hey, I'm safe. They did show up, that one of them did hit a siren coming up the driveway. Of course, I went up to the front of the home to meet them at the front door. I was nervous, I was shaking, as stated in the police report. I did advise them where my firearms were at, that they were laid down. They did, frisk me in the front yard, which I could understand them doing that to secure their safety. They did verify that the firearms were down in the basement. I'd actually jammed a bullet up in the gun with the adrenaline flowing and being afraid. I didn't realize how much power I put into the bolt-action rifle. It was a Remington 22 short rifle, bolt-action short rifle. It was New England shotgun, 12-gauge, single shot upstairs that I had fired. Nevertheless, they came in, they inspected the windows. Initially, they thought they were shot out. They did give me my firearms back. I put them back in my gun cabinet, locked the gun cabinet back up. Being nervous, those of you that know me know I could be quite the chain smoker and coffee drinker, and still am to this day. With everything that happened, I was very upset. I did call my wife on her cell phone and asked her to come home right away, advising her what had happened. She came home. They did interview her in the garage. About
Message from
+30 in the morning.
14433470166. Hey, how are you doing?
They did.
Can I come by?
They did interview her about 8:30 in the morning. They interviewed me. I was sitting in the house with Susan throughout the morning. About 10:30, we looked out. We noticed the police department walked away from back of the house where the windows were shot out. The police cars had emptied out of the front yard and up and down the driveway. Given the nature of the property, we couldn't tell who was out on the side at the garage or next to the sheds. There were nine parking spots next to the shed that we couldn't see over on that side. I assumed they had left. Susan had assumed they had left. Susan went on down. I walked down before me. I went down with my phone to take pictures of the damages for the insurance company. She was picking up the glass and the rocks as I was walking down the steps. I had actually knocked a rock off the deck when I was walking down the steps that rolled down the hill to the swimming pool. The other rock she was already picking up in the glass. I told her, honey, don't touch nothing. I'm taking pictures for the insurance company. She got mad. She goes up the steps to the deck, back through my office into the house. The police department comes around and starts questioning me, asking me where the rocks went. I explained to them that, I tried to explain to them that she started picking up the rocks. They didn't want to hear that. They asked me where the rocks were that were already there from when I was cutting the grass. I very often set rocks on the train board as I picked them up throughout the yard. When I would cut the grass with the riding lawnmower, I wouldn't get off the riding lawnmower. I'd just reach around, pick them up, and then when I came back around by my train deck, I'd set them on the train board. So there are already rocks down there. That's how I broke the basement window before, which I replaced that with French doors. I actually ran over a rock with the lawnmower and busted out one of the patio windows, which, like I said, I replaced with double French doors for the other side of the basement. But nevertheless, they were questioning me when the last time I was at work. I advised them the 26th of March. This was the 29th of March. They asked me why I hadn't been to work since. I told them I work a 24 on, 72 off schedule. They asked me what type of work I did. I told them I'm a DC fireman. They asked me I had any military training. I did advise them that I did have military tactics training through the United States Customs Service Smuggling Investigations Division. They again asked me why I wasn't at work, and I told Sergeant Cox, hey, I worked 24 hours on, 72 hours off. They kept questioning me why I wasn't at work. They asked me what I did there. I expressed to them I was a firefighter EMT. and that I work for the Foam Unit Task Force for the White House with the fire department. Sergeant Cox called me a liar. I'm like, dude, I know what I do for a living. I've been doing it for 15 years. He again called me a liar. He was hollering. I cleared out his police station during briefing. He was upset about that. He accused me of busting the windows out, which is totally false. And this is where it went. They eventually left. Susan and I went to get additional cameras for the woods down, as we had a lot of the acreage wooded. Later that afternoon, I was called by Chief Michael Dowling. I was actually stringing 400 feet of electrical cord to put lights down in the woods from the storage shed. I got called back at the house. I was told to report to the fire department Clinton next morning, and that's when I found out that the police department had called there several times, leaving notes and trying to have them declare me mentally ill after I was cleared by the crisis team, mental health crisis team, on the scene that's under contract with the Anne Arundel County Police Department. Sergeant Cox continued to call throughout the day, from what I was told, and did not inform them that I was cleared by their own crisis team. So anyhow, it took about a month and a half to go through that full fitness for duty to be cleared to go back to full duty. But like I said, police department kept calling for 2 years, making accusations on my mental health, refusing to take police reports for other incidents that were going on, filed these false charges on me. I addressed letters to Congressman Elijah Cummings, Congressman Rupenberger, Tommy Wells with Washington, D.C. County Council on Public Safety and Affairs, and other various agencies, but continually getting the runaround, including with the governor's office. Initially, it was Governor O'Malley and then Governor Hogan, just like eventually it was the county executive, and I can't remember her name offhand, before County Executive Stephen Schlew took over. I did have a meeting with the Anne Arundel County Police Officer Corporal McDermott, Dr. Jen Corbin, and Ken Bowser from Anne Arundel County Mental Health Crisis Team, and with Sergeant Ford, Sergeant Boyd, and I believe her name was Jennifer White from Baltimore City PD at Anne Arundel County Police Station, Northern District, regarding the ongoing issues. I brought documentation with me. I was told by Dr. Jen Corbin to put it away, that I was going to be divorced October 1st, that Susan needed years of psychotherapy and other means of mental health help. She also advised me that Kevin Davis had called herself, Mark Bowser, and Corporal McDermott into his office and told them that he didn't want to hear about this again. But nevertheless, based out of that meeting, right after that meeting, I went and had my phone number changed. It was 2 weeks later that I was getting the strange phone calls again and harassing phone calls on my cell phone. As soon as I gave my fire department the information of the cell phone number as I was required to do, it wasn't a week after that these calls started coming back in. And like I said, the rest of it's been documented on Facebook since 2015. I could go on all night with this, which I'm not going to. But nevertheless, Stephen Schlew was aware of this in 2016, had his attorney send me a letter stating they investigated these matters adequately, and that the county wasn't going to take any further action. They've refused to apologize publicly. They've refused to correct any damages that have been done, despite mental health professionals stating that if Susan got the mental health help she needs, that these issues would stop with the concern for life safety. Nothing's been done. And, my question is, why can't these leaders that took oaths to protect and defend and to do the right thing step up to the plate and repair the damages that they have done? This is clear documentation after 8 years that shows full deliverance. Not we made a mistake and we need to correct it, but we made a mistake. We're not going to correct it, and we're going to cover this up for as long as we can and refuse to pay for the damages incurred that we're responsible for. So I know it's an election time coming up. I don't like to make the political statements like this. And I'm neither Republican or Democrat. I've always voted for the person I think's going to do the best job, regardless of political affiliation. Who do I feel is going to do the best job in office is how I vote. In this case, because of the situation and financial restraints, I couldn't afford to stay in Anne Arundel County to live. That's why I'm living in Brooklyn. Everything that I should have and where I should be at, and my voting rights have even been denied because of the financial situation. But nevertheless, I have a lot of Anne Arundel County friends, and I go to church in Anne Arundel County. I do a lot of work in Anne Arundel County to help people out, including getting people up off the streets that I meet and into drug rehab programs, through starting up here on Governor Ritchie Highway in Anne Arundel County, that's open to both the Baltimore residents of Brooklyn as well as the Anne Arundel County residents of Brooklyn. I've done things for my church, such as help out with the homeless shelters once a year. I generally spend 1 night or 2 nights up there all night long to do my part to help homeless people have a place to stay and watch out for them during the course of the shifts that I volunteer for. That's arranged through Anne Arundel County House of Hope with the churches in the wintertime mostly. My church does it for a week every year. So, and like I said, those of you who know me, that I've spent my life helping people, where the county's tried to make me out to be some type of a monster that I'm not. Those of you that see me help out at the church with people that have had heart attacks or other mental health or medical health issues, such as the falls, the little child that cracked her skull open during a fall that I was there for, and assisted Anne Arundel County Police with the CPR, the passing outs at the church, bringing another Washington, D.C. firefighter in to teach CPR as a result of knowing the medical needs, or even being at the church in Odenton when we were doing the monthly blood pressure checks. And I'm still open to, on Sundays, if someone wants their blood pressure checked, come catch me between the first and second service, or if you need assistance, come tap me on the shoulder. I'll take you right into the church library and check you out with the blood pressure kits we have at the church. It's not a problem. And if you need assistance, I'll get you up to the patient first down the street, or get you to a hospital, or make arrangements through calling 911 for additional medical assistance for you. That's what I'm there for. That's my purpose by God, to help people, not to hurt people. I've been accused of doing many things that I haven't done, but